This story takes place 4 years ago, and still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night, and my family were driving home from this fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't that tired, so the 45-minute drive seemed perpetual. On top of that, my little sister was constantly moaning about her and her friend didn't get anything for Christmas. After about 20 minutes of driving, my dad stopped at a gas station just to get some cigarettes, and my sister, brother and mother all got out to pee. I of course stayed in the car. I'd already gone before we left. Once they'd all got out, I decided to play a few games on my phone. I looked at the car clock and saw that 10 minutes had passed, so I immediately wondered what the bloody hell was taking so long. As soon as I peered out the car window, I saw a man just staring at our car. The man startled me. I didn't know how long he'd been there, just watching me. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain blank face. No expression was shown. It was hard to make out any features as it was pretty dark, and he wasn't standing in an illuminated part of the station. He was about 5'9" and looked to be middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't scared. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of the family just as the man had taken a couple steps towards the car. My dad immediately apologised and told me he'd been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care. I was just glad that my dad was with me. I took another glance at the man outside, and he was still staring. But this time, he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. This wouldn't have been too bad if it just ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone else was asleep. I just put down my phone and just enjoyed the ambience. That didn't last for long, as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lurched forward and nearly fell out of the bed. I immediately thought a bird had smashed the window or something like that. I parted the blinds, and what I saw next haunted me. I saw a man standing out by my parents' car, just looking up at my room. I took a closer look and nearly had a heart attack. It was the same man that I saw at the gas station. Only this time, when our eyes met, he grinned. Being the 14-year-old I was, I did the manly thing and screamed at the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and entered my room. "Why the fuck are you screaming?" he said. I told him about the man and explained everything that had happened. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After about 10 minutes, the police had turned up outside our house and found the man in our shed. They arrested him immediately, and that was the last time I saw him. The next day my dad inspected the house, and we found the handle of our back door had been damaged, but not completely broken. This gave me an eerie feeling, as what if he managed to get into the house, and possibly even killed us? It was Christmas Eve, and I was a freshman in high school. My family had been split up for some time, so normally we'd trade off Christmas Day and Christmas Eve every year, and this year I'd come home early from my grandparents' Christmas party, while everyone else was still at my aunt and uncle's, celebrating another party. When I was dropped off at my cousin's, I was offered to stay for a few hours, yet I declined. I thought I could watch some of my new DVDs and get some alone time in the house, which is a rarity. I'd noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, but didn't think anything of it, considering it was Christmas Eve. Probably a neighbour's relative or something like that. After I got inside, I locked the door, grabbed a few snacks and started to settle down. I hadn't been home for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it a crack to see a man standing there. Dark hair, glasses, slightly overweight, and dressed casually. He didn't look like that much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. He asked, "I was wondering about the car outside." Is it for sale? I told him I didn't think so. Is there someone here I can talk to about it? I said, quite stupidly, no, you can come back another time, and shut the door and turn the lock as fast as possible. He reached for the handle immediately and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. Terrified, I was crawling on the floor to the phone, hoping he wouldn't be able to see me through one of the windows. Then I heard the noises. Our house had an open garage door and it led through to the laundry room, where the door lock was broken and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then I heard a man yell and I saw the man through the window run to his car and drive off. My uncle had gotten him just in time and scared the man off. Who knows what could have happened if he hadn't made it home. Sadly, we didn't get the number plates. Well, nothing ever came of it, but I'll never forget seeing a note scratched on the patio, which read, "You're next." I have to admit, I'm not a fan of Christmas, not due to any Scrooge-like tendencies or anything, but because of what I saw when I was 7. It was Christmas Day, and I was so excited, so I crept down the stairs at 2 o'clock in the morning. The grandfather clock in the hallway was slowly ticking. I remember it only too well. I found myself shaking as I turned the living room doorknob. Was I that excited? Why did the metal feel so cold? So, as to not wake my parents, I slowly pushed the door open and crept into the living room. It was dark and cold. I mean, so cold I could see my breath. Was the heating broken or something? I was puzzled. The switch to dim the lights was next to the door. I found it and slowly turned the dial. In the dimmish gloom, I could make out the armchairs and the Christmas trees, beneath which I could already see a glimpse of the presents. And then, the leering, skinless face was just now an inch away from me. Its pupilless eyes seemed to stare straight through me. As its stench hit my nostrils, it smelt like rotting meat. The thing reared back, its lipless face falling behind the ragged hood it wore. It turned away and lurched and limped towards the tree. I could see more of it now. It was stooped and withered. It was draped with rotting rags of what I guessed must have once been a robe. The thing seemed mesmerised by the tree. Its head was swivelling eerily from side to side as it contemplated what to do. Then it turned and looked at me directly, lifting a long bony finger up to its face where its lips may have once been. My mouth was agape. I was rooted to the spot. I tried to scream, but no noise came out. Finally, I managed to slowly retreat from the living room, turning off the light as I went. I closed the door with a thud and quietly crept up the stairs, too terrified to do anything else. I ran to my room and hid under the covers. Only then did I manage to finally, silently sob with fear. The next morning I put on a brave face and pretended to be excited as I unwrapped my presents with everyone else. My mum must have known there was something wrong, as she asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was just tired, as I couldn't sleep the night before. She hesitated for a moment, but brushed it off as we picked up all the torn wrapping paper left behind. But all I could think of was that thing I saw the night before. I barely even played with my new toys. I just kept seeing its face every time I closed my eyes. As the years had drawn on, I've pondered this in some detail. We've forgotten what Christmas really is. It's how we used to survive the darkest, grimmest time of the year. That's what all the tinsel and the merrymaking and Santa Claus and stems are for. They need to shut out the darkness and the howling blizzard outside. Yet, I think there's something else too. All the crap about Christmas being magical is true. We dress up as elves, reindeers with red noses, but it's more than that. There's a reason why we don't tell ghost stories at Christmas. It is the one point of the year where the boundaries between this world and the others are at its thinnest. No wonder they have a festival and a nativity at this time of year. Consciously or not, we're warding off the horror that steeps into our world during the nights. Maybe all the rituals these days appease the thing that wait in the shadows and ward them off for another year. These days I just bolt it out of my mind and pretend I hadn't seen that thing on Christmas morning. But I know it's real. And I know it's hard to believe, but please be careful.